instantly to be Texans, especially here on the border. Our current governor has shown us time and time again that he does not care for our lives, he does not care for our interests, but rather the interests of his donors and the radical minority that he pledges allegiance to. He did not bat an eye when El Paso had to call in mobile morgues to accommodate the loss of life that happened at the height of the pandemic under his watch. He fed us empty promises of change after 23 lives were stolen from us in that Walmart on August 3rd, 2019, then went on to sign into law permitless carry that made our community and other communities across Texas less safe for children and family. He has ensured that young women like myself do not have the right to bodily autonomy, but can be hunted for seeking reproductive care in the state. And my first winter at Texas State, Governor Greg Abbott let my friends and neighbors in Central Texas freeze in their own homes because he could not fix the damn grid. We need a change. There has never been a more critical time to vote for leaders who are beholden not to special interests, but to the interests of the people. We have that power. We have the power and the responsibility, not just for our sake, but for the sake of those who cannot join us at the ballot box in November. People like my 15-year-old sister, who does not have the right to bodily autonomy like her mother did before her at her age. We have that power to elect leaders that will speak up for what's right, that will call out lies and inaction, even if it means that they will get escorted out of a press conference on live television. We need leaders who make us proud to be part of the Lone Star State. And no one makes us prouder to be Texans than the next governor of Texas, Beto O'Rourke.
Do you all feel like winning the governor's race for the state of Texas? I am so grateful that you are here, that you took some time to be with us and to send us off in style and strength on a 49-day drive across the state of Texas. The biggest push thus far of this campaign, and there is nowhere else that we'd rather start it than right here in the town in which I was born and raised. And I am so this is Cynthia, who helped us to organize tonight, who's on the road with me and Chris every single day, wanted me to remind you all that you can buy a beverage here at this place. You can tip your server generously. We want you to have a good time within bounds. We want you to be responsible. But we want you to make sure that you are sending us with all the strength in the world, that we carry the message and the story and the people of El Paso with us every single day that we're out there on the road. Being here right now, hearing Mariachi Paso del Norte, who were fucking amazing, right? Just absolutely. Hearing Mike introduce all these great public elected officials who use their positions of public trust to actually help the people that they're supposed to represent and serve. And then listening to Adriana, who is not just our future, she is kicking ass right now, not just for El Paso, but for the state of Texas. You know, be here with you. So many great leaders here. I see Desert Adapt right here to my right, fighting for civil rights every single day in this community and across the state of Texas. My friend Terry Diaz is here. She's been a lifelong supporter and educator, very involved civically, and she was married to our good friend Javier Diaz, whom we lost due to COVID over the course of this pandemic. Javier Diaz, tell me there's a more El Paso guy than this one. Goes to Bowie High School, knew the best friends with Super Sanchez, at 17 years old, gains his mother's permission to join the Marines so he can go serve this country in Korea, put his life on the line for America, defending and fighting for democracy so that we can preserve it here at home. And then over here to my left and to your right is the OG, the original gangster, Melissa O'Rourke, my mom, who is here with my sister Charlotte, my sister Erin, Charlotte's kids, my wife, our kiddos here as well. This is the source of everything that is important to me. My strength, my reason for existing, and certainly the reason for running and winning for everyone in the state of Texas. Because, as Adriana just told us, what is happening right now in this state, the headlines that are making news all over the world, that is not us. That is not who we are. That is not Texas, and it certainly is not El Paso at its best. The inability to keep the power on in the energy capital of the world, and to have more than 700 people lose their lives, literally freezing to death in the state of Texas just last year. Last week, 2 separate conservation notices for the rest of the state's power grid on ERCOT. Luckily, we're not on it. Conservation notice means that you set your thermostat to 78 degrees. Those are fighting words in the state of Texas. We don't set our thermostats to 78 degrees, but we have to when the governor, the person in power, cannot keep the power going to the people who need it, who hasn't made the necessary investments or weatherized the grid, and is too busy taking millions of dollars from the people who profit off the status quo. Just that story, what has happened in the grid under Greg Abbott's watch, says everything that you need to know about this guy. He is chaos, he is corruption, he is cruelty, and he is incompetence. And it doesn't stop there. Does not a single woman in this room or beyond these walls in this state have the right to make her own decisions about her own body? So this is literally at conception with no exception for rape or incest. And when a reporter reminded the governor of this, hey governor, I don't know if you know what you're doing, but this bill that you're about to sign, there's no exception for rape. The governor, looking like the deer caught in the headlights, says, well, we will eliminate rape in the state of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you there have been more rapes committed in this state than in any other in the union. And since that guy has been in office, the ability to solve those rapes and bring rapists to justice has been declined by half. There are thousands of untested rape kits on the shelves of our state. Greg Abbott is making us less safe, is giving criminals a free pass, and those of us in El Paso know he's doing everything within his power to assure that the most violent among us, those who brought hatred to this community on August 3rd, 2019, are the best armed on the planet. After that massacre in our community, do you think he did anything other than offering his thoughts and prayers and calling special committees? He didn't. You know what he did? He signed a bill into law that allows anyone to carry a loaded gun in public without a background check, without any training, without any vetting whatsoever. You know who begged him not to do this? Were police officers and sheriff's deputies, women and men of law enforcement who said, Mr. Governor, maybe you don't understand how this works. Well, when you let anybody carry a gun out there without us being able to check on them, and after 38,000 licenses to carry a firearm were denied in the last 5 years because we deem these people too dangerous to themselves or to others to carry a gun, you're going to let every single one of them, and the tens of thousands more who knew better than to ever apply to carry these firearms on our street. The governor turned his back on them and faced forward to the NRA to take the donations and the support and the political points that he could win in the Republican primary at the cost of our lives. More cops have been gunned down in the state of Texas than any other in the union. We're seeing a spike in gun violence all across this state. And this guy, the most important man and the most powerful one in the state of Texas, has the audacity to go to Uvalde the day after that shooting. He could have gone there the night of it, but instead he drove 300 miles in the opposite direction to attend a fundraiser and raise resources for his campaign instead of being with the people who needed him most. When he finally shows up to be with the parents, 19 sets of parents who lost their children, and the families of those 2 heroic teachers who literally gave their lives trying to defend those kids. You know what he said? First words out of his mouth, "It could have been worse." Mr. Governor, it does not get any worse than that, but what I tell you is that it's totally predictable, and it will continue to happen until we have change in the state. The people of El Paso, unfortunately, know that better than about anybody else in this country. We understand that when we have a governor who stokes racism and anxiety and hatred towards immigrants, warns of invasion, says, "Texans, defend yourselves. You must take matters into your own hands." There's going to be a guy out there, like the man in Allen, Texas, who bought that AK-47, a weapon originally designed for use in war, because that high-impact, high-velocity round, when it hits your body, it shreds everything inside, destroys the tissue, the veins, the arteries, the organs. You bleed out before we can get to you and revive you and save your life. This guy was listening, bought that AK-47, drove to El Paso and killed 23 of us in this community because he was told to by the former president and by our current governor. He was told to defend himself and to repel this invasion, and that's exactly what he thought he was doing. We need a government. Immigrants are our greatest asset, our source of strength. Texas is such a great state, and if you want to come here to work, to join your family, to seek asylum, to petition for refuge, there's got to be a lawful, orderly, safe, and quick path for you to be able to do that. We don't need scare tactics or fear-mongering or stunts. We need solutions, and those solutions have to come from us, the people of the border. So El Paso, are you ready? Are you sure that we're doing what we need to do? Imagine this. Imagine instead of all that craziness and extremism and those fringe politics that are hurting and killing so many of our fellow Texans, we had a governor who felt this way, that we should be treating our public educators with the respect that they deserve, that they've earned from us. We should be paying them enough not to work a second or a third job. We should make sure that they can tell the full story, the history of this state, without being told by their governor, who's never spent a minute as a teacher in a classroom, what version they can or cannot. What if we listened to them when they said, "Hey Beto, let's cancel the STAR test and replace it with something that actually works"? This isn't teachers, it's not working for our parents. Instead, they've got a guy in the governor's office who is attacking them day in, day out. And those retired teachers have not had a cost of living adjustment since the year of our Lord, 2004. And in case you haven't noticed, prices have gone up a little bit since 2004 in this community. And you know who's responsible more than anyone else? It's Greg Abbott. Look at your electricity bill. Since that grid failure that he's responsible for, your utilities have gone up on average $45 a month. Every single month. Your property taxes. If you haven't looked at your appraisal notice, make sure you're sitting down before you do. When you look at your appraisal notice, when you look at the tax rate, despite the best efforts of these public servants, you understand that some people in our state, even within our community, are getting priced out of their homes. The governor has raised our property taxes $20 billion over the last 7 years. He is the single greatest driver of inflation in the state of Texas. What if instead of focusing on the culture wars and persecuting people and trying to warn Texans about who they're supposed to hate or be afraid of going forward, we had a governor who focused on the economy, bringing prices down in the state, making it more affordable to raise your family, to start a business, to go to work, to live to your full potential, creating the kinds of jobs that pay a living wage so you don't work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. What if, and this is going to sound crazy to you, what if we expanded Medicaid in the state of Texas so you could see take their kid to a mental health care provider when they need it. The least insured state in the country, that's who we are today. #1 provider of mental health care services in Texas. The county judge knows this. It's the county jails. People with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, clinical depression, in some cases who are ineligible for Medicaid in Texas now, get arrested on purpose to go to the one place they are guaranteed just some level of care. More kids have died of diabetes in this state than in any other. We just have to take yes for an answer. We expand Medicaid. We bring $10 billion in a year. We connect more people with more care. We hire more providers into this community. We drive down your property taxes because right now you're paying for indigent care because we haven't expanded Medicaid. That just makes all the common sense in the world, as does this healthcare issue, making sure that abortion is legal in Texas again so that her own health care. It's crazy that half a century after that became the law of the land, we're even having to talk about it right now. But talk about it we must, and then we must act, because I'll tell you this. We now lead the developed world in the rate of maternal mortality. It is particularly bad for black women in the state because when you close down family planning providers in Texas, not only is it harder for women to get an abortion, but try getting a cervical cancer screening, or seeing a family planning provider, or seeing a doctor of any kind in remote, underserved communities across this state. It is literally killing the women of Texas to fail to take action. That is what is on the line in this election. Ladies and gentlemen, we have got to come through. We're counting on one another. Our fellow Texans are watching what we do, but most importantly, to the moms and dads and the grandparents in this room, at some point, there will be an accounting for what we did or what we failed to do at this moment. Now that can be your conscience, you looking at yourself in the mirror. Maybe it is your maker on the day that you leave this planet. But for me, it's my kids. And I want them to know that at this defining moment of truth for Texas, when everything that we care about, including our very democracy, in a state that makes it harder to vote or register to vote than in any other, we all did not only everything that we could to overcome this, we did everything that we could to overcome it, and then we overcame it and won this election. Are you need to do? Now, this is not going to be easy. It was, if my math and history serve me, 32 years ago that Texas last elected a Democrat to the governor's office. Happened to have been the best governor we ever had, Ann Richards, maybe you remember her. But it's going to be tough, and they're using every lever of power that they have to try to stop us. So, you think if everyone in Texas voted that we would have a ban on abortion, that we would be attacking teachers, that we would have permitless carry, that we couldn't keep the grid running, that prices would be going through the roof? Absolutely not. We're not so much a red state, and I recognize we're not a blue one either. We're more non-voting than we are anything else. 7 million Texans who were eligible to did not cast a ballot in the 2020 election, the most consequential presidential contest of our lifetimes. Now, they're not lazy. They don't lack any love for this great democracy. But when you rig the rules to make it harder for people to vote, when in Houston, Texas, outside of TSU, one of our great historically black colleges, the line to vote on election day stretches 6 hours long because Texas has closed 700 polling places, more than any other state, twice the number of the closest state, and most of them concentrated in the fastest growing black and brown neighborhoods. When you have a racial gerrymander of the state that draws people out of a congressional district solely based on the color of their skin or their country of national origin, when you make it purposely harder for some to vote to elevate the power of others, this is what you get. So we've got to overcome that as well. The good news is we all have an opportunity to do something. It's not going to be the candidate. It won't be the political party. It's going to be the people. Now, there are a number of people in yellow vests who are holding clipboards right now. They're holding these clipboards up. They are not construction workers. I mean, maybe they are in their day jobs, but right now, they are signing volunteers up to knock on doors. Check this out. In that same election in 2020, where 7 million people who could have voted didn't vote in the state of Texas, in El Paso County, 196,000 of our neighbors, of our friends, of our family members did not vote. They were eligible to vote. They were over 18. They were a U.S. citizen. Many of them were already registered. 196,000 of them did not vote. Since then, we brought 46,000 more people onto the rolls. So I tested my incoming sophomore on the math. That's 242,000 people whose voices have yet to be heard, whose votes have yet to be counted. Ladies and gentlemen, when we ran in 2018, we only lost to Ted Cruz by 216,000 votes. The margin of victory is in El Paso County, right here. That you find one of these folks in a yellow vest with a clipboard, sign up, and knock on doors with us. If you care about anything that I brought up today, if there's some other reason that you came out here beyond hearing the band, which was reason enough, then you got to do the work to bring it home. This victory will not win itself. It must be won by us. One of the last things that I want to tell you. Some people might wonder whether this is even possible. If it's been 32 years, if the rules are so rigged against us, man, it seems like the sky is falling right now. Beto, what can we possibly do? Shouldn't we just give up? Let me tell you this. Just a number of blocks from here, and Joel Guzman can tell us exactly how many, is fire station number 5. It's since been shuttered. It's no longer in operation. But it was in 1923 when a black physician from El Paso named Dr. Lawrence Nixon went to go vote. That year, the Texas legislature had outlawed voting by African Americans in the state of Texas. You think I'm making this up? Go read your history. It wasn't count how many jelly beans are in the jar before we allow you to register. It was not quote the Texas Constitution. It wasn't a literacy test. It literally said in state statute that if you're an African American, you couldn't vote in the Democratic primary, which was the only primary that counted back in 1923 and 1924. Nixon, who has paid his poll tax, which was required to vote back then, presents the receipt at the polling place just over here on Texas Avenue, literally just blocks from where we stand right now. And the poll judges who recognize him, because he's voted in every damn election that he was able to vote in, said, Dr. Nixon, you know we can't let you vote. And Nixon says to them, I know you can't, but I've got to try. So Nixon tries. Even though he's denied the right to vote in that election, he takes his case to a local federal bench. He loses, appeals, takes it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, wins not one, but 2 signal Supreme Court victories, paving the way for integration of our elections, which is finally won in 1944, 21 years later. That guy was part of the inspiration for the Voting Rights Act of 1965, signed into law by our fellow Texan, Lyndon Baines Johnson. That guy had the tenacity, had the perseverance, had the courage, had the strength. He was an El Pasoan, and he made it happen. And for those who wonder whether in this state that can sometimes be confused for one ruled by the Taliban, where women no longer have equal rights to men, whether we'll ever be able to win those rights back, let me tell you this. Prior to 1973, abortion was illegal in the state of Texas. And it wasn't anyone who rode to our rescue from outside of this state who made it possible for women to make their own decisions. It was Texas women. Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade was a Texan. So were her 2 attorneys, Sarah Weddington from Abilene, Texas, of all places, and Linda Coffey, who still lives in Dallas. Those 3 women prevailed upon an all-male Supreme Court in the early 1970s to win this right that withstood the test of time for a half-century. I'm telling you right now that not only is it possible what we want to do, We've done bigger things against greater odds before. The power is within us right now. And there are a little more than 3 months left to us to use it. So I need your help going forward to make sure that we knock on every door of all those voters who've been targeted for suppression and intimidation. The very people who are not supposed to count in this election. If we reach out to them, if we knock on their doors, if from our own hearts, with our own words, we tell them why we think this election is so important, and with our own ears we listen to them when they respond why this election might be important to them, I guarantee you we're going to win their commitment to vote. And when they make that commitment and they go out to those polls and they vote during early voting in October or on Election Day on November 8th, we are going to win this thing and move Texas in the right direction and the right track. It is my honor to be your candidate in this race. It will be an even bigger honor to be your governor after we win this in November. Please sign up. Thank you, guys.
Such a perfect exit song, and I'm ruining it. I'm sorry. Beto's going to stick around if you guys want to take a photo with him. We're going to do a photo line in this corner, which is going to be tricky, so pay attention here. We're going to do entrance along the stage.